everyone, Kareem right here. Today I have the pleasure to interview Shane Folgado, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Savannah Clovers FC, which competes in the National Independent Soccer Association League, which is a third-tier pro soccer league in the United States. Shane, thank you for taking the time for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So how's it going?
It's going, being a new club in the third tier, in a city like Savannah. It's got great things to it. There's definitely a lot of appealing factors, short term, medium term, and long term. But it also has its challenges, like any new business in a very virgin environment in terms of its industry would have. So I would say, all in all, we're in it for the long term. So I think it's positive. Short term, it's like every business. You're figuring things out as you go along, and you're adapting, and nothing too dissimilar to what possibly other clubs in their first year of inception would go through.
Absolutely. When you say long term, how long are we talking? 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
You know what? It's always in such a fluid and liquid commercial market and environment these days. It's difficult to put a specific date and number on it, unfortunately. But we're definitely looking at a minimum of 5 years in terms of building the brand and the platform so that it can be at its absolute best. And then from there, where else would you expand, or how would you expand it? It'll be possibly another phase. So for now we're taking it a day at a time, because we've got matches and we've got a season, our inaugural season. We've got to see that through, and we're busy making already plans for year two, which is 2024, and so on. But safe to say that 5 years would be the long term, considering the macro environment at the moment. If it goes beyond that, then it's great.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions to ask Shane is, how did you get involved in the beautiful game? Can you take us a little bit back in time and just share a little bit about that?
Oh man, it's since I've been very, 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 very young. So I was brought up in Portugal, in a small town, small village, right in the middle of the country. I arrived there, without parents. I was taken in by my grandparents, so they didn't know how to speak Portuguese. I mean, they didn't know how to speak English at all. When it was a village, and nobody in the village knew how to speak English either. And I didn't know how to speak Portuguese because I'd never been there. And I arrived there, I think it was about 6 or 7 years old. Um, so, I mean, there's such a barrier in terms of culture, such a barrier in terms of people, because I didn't know anybody, including the people that took me in. And it was challenging. So the one day I happened to just be sitting on by myself on the corner of the playground, and a soccer ball came and landed next to me. And as that soccer ball landed next to me, I sort of froze, and I looked up and I saw all these other boys moving. They were moving towards me, and they were looking at me and looking at the ball. And I realized, hold on, they want the ball. But if I've got the ball, then maybe this is my barrier to maybe make some friends. So I grabbed the ball, I kicked it. Some kids ran after it and started playing, and others just pushed me on and said, "No, come play." And the fact that I got embraced by such a simple thing, a round piece of leather, and all of a sudden I had friends, it started meaning something to me. And then from there, I've been involved in the game in many different ways, from coaching right from under sixes all the way up to collegiate level and assistant, senior pro level, scouting, consulting, um, management level. Oh man, I mean, every possible area. I mean, even as helping out in certain negotiations between club mergers and acquisitions, player arrivals, agency and player and parent intermediation. Setting up youth academies in certain markets, or being the advisor to some of those projects. I've pretty much done the full circle in terms of most things that can be done in the game. And and it's been a phenomenal journey. I can't complain about the fun and even the challenges that came with it. But that's pretty much it in a brief nutshell.
Yeah, it's such a cool, unique story, and I appreciate you sharing that. It's so organic and so cool. With saying that, how did you get the opportunity to be the CEO at Savannah Clovers FC, and what is your long-term vision for the club?
So one of the personal visions I had and have with regards to football, or let's say soccer, like it's called here in the United States, is to create a multi-club ownership platform that focuses on niche markets that are not really being seen by by the bigger companies or the bigger clubs, but those same clubs can't live without them. So we started with a club in Ghana as the company that I'm with. So I managed to get into investment through a group of individuals that believed in the project. It started in Ghana, actually, sort of middle of COVID 2021. Set it all up via Zoom. Actually, we couldn't travel, but because I had extensive dealings in Ghana through my just all my other soccer related interactions, I had a good idea of the landscape. I had a very good network there, so we managed to put something together that's quite special, which is now running into its second full season of operation. The other one was to try and get into the United States, simply to bridge a gap between Central South America and create an entry level into the United States. But first, we'd want to set something up, almost, I wouldn't say bulletproof, but relatively foolproof, to be able to then create that corridor, but also be in an environment that has a tremendous amount of commercial potential, a massive feel of community, a massive feel of engagement in what is going on, so that we could build something organic long term. So when I started looking at the landscape in the United States at the time, obviously MLS has got a completely different profile in terms of what they're looking for and where they are. The USL, we explore that possibility as well, as to where couldn't we, but in Savannah that wasn't a possibility. When then I got hold of NISA, and I found out about their business model, we felt, listen, okay, this could work. They had one or two other markets as well that were not yet accounted for, but we, based on the research that I did of Savannah and one or two other places, it just seemed the most likely place to be, for a whole host of reasons. And then I met with Brian Sykes, who is the founder when it was still in its amateur stages. Jeff Default, which was a partner to Brian in the previous era of the club. We had conversations mediated by NISA. We sort of, explored and explained to each other what it would look like and why. And then the rest is history. We're here.
Yeah, amazing. So can you just share some of those benefits? You said, at the stage that you were searching for a market, can you share some of the benefits that you saw in Savannah that you said, yes, this is a market that I want to tap into and be here for the long term for 5 years and build this out?
Yes. So, due to what took place during the COVID time, there's obviously always, your spin-offs, your good and your bad. One of the positives, if I were to look at it from an outsider and from just looking at numbers, is that, the Southeast region is literally exploding. It's booming, second to nothing else. And I'm even going as far as saying even South Carolina, even North Carolina, and Georgia is not second to any of those. Obviously, having already a massive club in northern part of Georgia, it almost eliminates any possibility of organic growth and following. Then the next best place would be Savannah. Savannah is incredibly has got an incredible character of its own. It's very, very unique. It's got a very young median population. It's got a very good median average salary. It's got a lot of students, a lot of universities. It's got a lot of real estate development taking place, and it's ripe for something like this. It's ripe for our type of model. If you look at the other pro sports or high level sports properties in Savannah, they're non-competing with us because they don't belong. It's not a soccer related property. One is the baseball, which they've done exceptionally well, and they've also grown organically through the support of the community. If you look at ice hockey, it's also third tier, and they've had a very positive first season. So we felt that the timing was right for us to get involved in a city and in an area and in a community that is not only welcoming, but everything else in and around it, the infrastructure, the real estate, the mindset, the level of investment going in there, Hyundai's, $3 or $4 billion plant, and all sorts of other investments just warrant us making it here at the right time, because there is nothing like this in the area. So for us, obviously, it comes with its risks because it is a virgin place to our sport in terms of high level sport. But we looked at the pros and the cons, and it was one of those things where you say, right, well, we don't know what we don't know, but let's go for it based on the right things.
Yeah, just tapping a little bit back in regards to Ghana, when I hear, things going on overseas, not on the European side, more so on the African side, I'm very foreign to it. And, can you just share a little bit more about that investment and, like why would you get yourself into that investment, and, kind of like what are the benefits of that? I understand being able to provide that pathway to the US, but I want to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so initially Ghana was put together, and I would say possibly still now, where the main objective wasn't really to use the USA pathway. It was from there to obviously go into Europe.
Hmm.
Ghana has tremendous number of highly capable athletes. They from a physical point of view, that West African region is just on a very different level, just genetically. They still run the same model of many countries years ago, where in every corner you see kids playing on the street soccer with whatever can roll, they'll play soccer with it. There's a completely different level of intelligence naturally from a Ghanaian player. Physically, they're very astute. It's a very well structured league, very well organized league. It's very well managed in all the different layers. It's very clear to understand. And for us, we looked at it as also the fact that it's one of the markets that's had the most success in having high level and high quality players playing in Europe. So we've developed a model where we got there into the third tier, just like we did with NISA. We got into the third tier with the objective of getting a very young team promoted into the second tier. We're currently playing playoffs. We'll play this Sunday, pretty much the semi-final, and if we win the following week, we play the final. We've got the youngest professional team in the whole of Ghana, where our average age is 19.7. Our striker is 17, only turning 18 in December, and he's scoring goals amongst men. And now in the playoffs, the first game, he scored a goal as well. And then we've also started our academy, where we've got kids 13, 15, and 17 years old that we're handpicking to go through our system as well. The objective with Ghana is very much the creation of a high-level professional structure in a very third-world environment, so that we can turn that potential into a higher-level potential, and move them on. Obviously, Portugal would be great. Otherwise, the United States would also be fantastic, because not every player can play in a European country, and we also don't know every single clubs that we can literally place players everywhere. But it's an exciting project. Our technical director is the past national team coach of Ghana. Our head coach is a very experienced and a very knowledgeable person in coaching players of a certain age, which is what we aim for. We've got a fantastic team there that's done tremendously well in a short space of time. We started the club there from nothing. That club didn't exist. We put it together from absolutely nothing. I still scouted a substantial number of the players we have today, and very involved in a project which is exceptionally exciting. It's very different to Savannah. Savannah, there's a possible commercial element to it. There's no promotion relegation. There's a whole lot of different legislations in the United States. So the United States poses a different its challenges on its own and its benefits, and so does Ghana. But the main reason from going into Ghana is just because of the fluid talent pool there, a very well structured and capable footballing environment, and just the known success of a number and a myriad of Ghanaian players playing actively in the main leagues and clubs of Europe over the past 15, 20 years.
Yeah, understood. I remember. Do you mind if I share something with you quickly?
Yeah.
I remember hearing a story from a USL Championship player from a place like Ghana or somewhere close by, and someone saw him from the US and said, "Hey, you're a really good player." Spoke to the family, can I bring him over? Brought him to the US, got him into UCLA, and now he's playing in the USL Championship. So when I heard that story first, I said, "Wow!" I said it's pretty cool. It's powerful.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to just continue to learn more from yourself about this as well.
Mm.
Tapping back into NISA, how long was the process to get into NISA? And then how long did it take from once you guys got in to get to kickoff?
The NISA process itself wasn't too long. I would actually say it was very quick. It took about, between initial conversations and having our application approved, I would say let's say 5 months. It was about 5 months, all in all, the entire process.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it started in July 2021, and then our application process got approved in December 2021 as well. So it's about 5 months. We then decided to not participate in 2022. We wanted to build our structure. We wanted to acquaint ourselves with the environment. We wanted to do things relatively organically, because once again, it's a market that's very virgin to professional sports. So the acquisition of IP locally was never really gonna happen. It was a question of going through what the environment had that would be suitable, and also high level had a high level potential for us to work with at an admin level, at a technical level, because not just the players should be at a developmental age and stage in their life, but also our staff. We want our staff to use this as the bridge to gap from where they are and where they want to be, because this is a developmental club. That's what we are. So we needed to get a full year of getting this right. Obviously, I hadn't been in the country really. I needed to also come in country, meet with the people, understand the environment, and build what we have today. And like I said earlier, it still has its challenges, and they're not bad ones. It's just growing pains which every club goes through. So the NISA process was quick. It was our decision not to enter in 2022. We had that as an option. We decided to use it to put our ducks in a row and to get ready for 23.
Understood. Can you paint a picture, take us through step by step what the process is for myself and for future club owners watching this video? So you guys spoke to NISA, said this was the league. You guys went through NISA's application, and then what else happens? Do you guys got to go through US soccer? Is there FIFA involved?
Yeah, there's a whole, one thing is applying for NISA. So you apply to NISA, they've got their criteria and their requirements, the Board of Governors. Then obviously, if you tick all those boxes, the Board of Governors and the league then vote you in, based on the criteria you've shared and they've accepted. Then after that, yes, you do go through a Pro League task force with the United States Soccer Federation. There's a whole lot of things that you have to abide by to be able to then actually compete in a professional league, from an administrative point of view, safety point of view, field, insurance items, qualifications of your coaches and of certain staff, certain policies and regulations you also have to sign off and commit to before they give you the thumbs up from a federation point of view to compete. So the NISA part is I would say halfway in terms of the process, and the United States Federation is the other half. But from a weighting point of view, the United States Soccer Federation gives the final vote. If they feel that you meet all the minimum criteria, at least, to qualify for professional competition, then you're good to go.
How long was that process for you guys?
Look, we decided to take a year on purpose because we didn't know. None of us within the club had experience in doing this, so we didn't want to rush through anything and miss out on detail, and then spend time and money and not compete if we were going to do it so quickly. So we gave ourselves a year. I would say the entire process, if it were to be done for us to compete in 2022, I think it would have been around about, I would say about a 3 to 4 month process at the most.
Understood. You mentioned, being a part of the club, growing the club for the next 5 years. Where do you see that, within 5 years, what do you guys see accomplishing in that time frame?
Look, we've got our eyes set on establishing this specific team we have now, which is the men's pro NISA. We, as a philosophy for the vision that we have, is we want to have a very, very young and competitive team. We want to use the third division or the third tier of football to bring players as early as possible in their career to play professional, because then they stand a bigger chance to live a professional soccer playing life and to be seen by clubs and by themselves as a much bigger commercial asset from a footballing point of view. So the idea is to be a destination, high level and high quality professional soccer destination for young, hopeful athletes that have the potential to go beyond NISA, beyond USL, MLS or more. And we would like to become the incubator of that environment. We think the city is good enough for that. We think our ethos and way of working is definitely good enough for that. The background that we have with regards to youth development and setting up structures that promote the young footballer is what we're displaying at the moment in terms of scouting and recruiting. I believe we've got probably the youngest team in the league right now. Irrespective of the results, we want to try and stick to what we believe in, because we think that's where the differentiator is. And then obviously the women's game is something we're really, really looking into quite seriously. We want to perhaps look into that already this coming year and start in a structured amateur league in the build-up for 2025, where we would most likely have a team competing professionally in the women's game. The next steps would be establishing along the way a high-level elite youth environment, so that we can sort of incubate our own youth and get them through our pathway sooner rather than later. Once again, that requires time, structure, scouting, recruiting, and a proper network inland to account for their studies, for their well-being, etc., etc. And ultimately, I think what most clubs desire, to have your own home, to have a stadium that you can call home, the stadium that is that you're dependent on and is dependent on you 100%, and you can leverage a lot of other things through. Those are the main milestones from a high level point of view.
You guys already have those relationships in place with the city, with the government, in order to find land. What do they call it? Tax-free land.
Yeah, something along those lines. So look, we haven't started those conversations because we're very new in the environment, and we need to establish ourselves first as a brand, as people. Like I mentioned, I'm very new in the environment, and everything is new to me. So, building relationships, being trustworthy, being honorable, is not just important because it is Savannah. It's just important in general, and we'll rather establish that first before we start, waving flags that we're just not ready for as a club. If things change in the short term and the club takes takes a different viewpoint based on any sort of involvement from a third party or somebody coming in, yes, that does change. But I can only speak of the now, and the right now is we dedicated to building our brand, to serving each other internally to get the best out of one another, and to be responsible to the values and to the integrity of the community and the city itself, which it's built on. And I think from there, we can definitely achieve good things, such as approaching key people, because those key people would have realized that there's something here, there's something worthwhile, being a part of and investing or opening doors for. And that, I suppose, comes with its time and at the right time.
Absolutely. It's really good. You guys are not rushing into things. You guys are taking your time, building it out, doing it the right way. So that's really good to hear. What are three expenses in the financial model that's burning cash fast for you guys?
Look, the travel is a big thing, because NISA, and it's not a NISA. I don't want to sound like this is a NISA problem. It's just the landscape at the moment. So there's clubs from Rochester, Michigan, Tennessee, Florida, California. So it's quite widespread, as you can imagine. And the traveling is quite intense, because some of these teams, we play them away 2 or 3 times. So the travel is challenging, but it would be for any club anyway. If you look at any club's budget, MLS, USL, it sits right there in terms of a big operating expenditure contributor. The other thing I would say, obviously salaries always play a big role. I mean, you have to pay salaries. People on the ground have to work and earn their living. There's ways of sort of mitigating some of those costs as the season goes along and you become a bit wiser. But you got to pay your players, you got to pay your coaches, you got to pay your backroom staff. That comes without saying. So those two, I would say, going hand in hand as your biggest operating expenses on the month to month. Other than that, you always have once-off costs when you sign for lease agreements for your players to stay in. You got to sign for those. You got to put down a deposit and your first month's rent. So that's a bit of a balloon that you pay when you sign these things up. Other than that, it's relatively standard. The better, or the more you want to grow your environment. Either you want star players because you want to attract a certain commercial revenue to the business. Those star players are going to cost you, right? Or if you want highly experienced players because you want to win and you want to compete to win titles, that comes with its costs as well. So our business model is a bit different to that. We prepare to compromise in the short term on achieving performance-wise to be able to build our structure right, and then achieve those numbers as we go along without compromising what we want to do.
Understood. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you guys are facing right now?
The challenge, I would say the biggest challenge we're facing right now is that we're very, very new. And we're not in a soccer destination environment. So where we are, the talent pool isn't as rich as you would go to New York or to an Orlando or Miami or Los Angeles, just to mention some. It's not that ripe yet. So all our players have to come from outside this environment, which is a cost contributor because we need to house them, rightfully so. So the fact that we're not yet a destination, the fact that the talent pool where we are isn't the same as some of the other clubs we play against. I mean, we play against two Michigan teams that have a substantial talent pool within their immediate environment. We play against two California teams that also have a substantial talent pool where they are. We play then a team from Florida that has as its base Orlando, but plays in Daytona. They've got a fantastic talent pool. So it's a lot more at arm's length as opposed to us. I would say that we're very young. We need to be on the soccer map. We need to be a bit more of an attraction point, which I know we will be. But over and above that, it's just attracting the right talent, which all has to come from outside the city. There's nothing close by.
Understood. What would you say? We got the 2026 World Cup coming up, which is huge. How do you see this affecting your club in a positive way?
The general awareness of soccer is just going up and up and up and up and up. So we obviously going to ride that wave. I mean, everyone has to in the United States that's involved in soccer. We want to promote the game in Savannah as much as possible. We're using every bit of time that we have off the field to engage a whole lot of different initiatives to promote soccer to all different demographics, creeds, races, etc. Because it is a sport that transcends any color or any financial status. It's a sport that anyone can play. So we're going to make the absolute most of it, considering the fact that the semi-final is earmarked to be in Atlanta, and Atlanta is relatively close to us. We're going to strategize around that and see how we can position ourselves as a club a little bit differently and benefit from whatever's happening as much as possible. But in general, just being part of the hype and delivering soccer at the best possible level in the city. I think that's our responsibility, to represent professional soccer to the city so that they can be a part of it and contribute to what will be a tremendous event for this country.
How many fans do you guys currently have coming out to games now?
Look, it's been topsy-turvy up until now because we've had some very, very, very adverse weather in a lot of our matches. Our opening game, it was fantastic. We're just over 2,000 in our opening first ever pro game in Savannah against last season's champions, Michigan Stars. And it was a good game. We drew 1-1. And we had a fantastic crowd. It was a fantastic event. And then all the games after that, barring this past weekend's one, we just had tremendous amount of rain, but like excessive rain where, we gave a lot of value to the few fans that came out. There were a few that came out, but they couldn't sustain it past the half time. So it's difficult. If I give you a number, it's very, very, very affected by the extreme weather we've had. So if I give you the number of the 2 good weather days we've had, and between both games, we had just over 3,100. If I give you the average of the bad weather games, we had an average of 420.
Understood. Yeah. There was a question I was going to ask, but it kind of left my mind. Oh, what has been the top 2 revenue generators for you guys? You don't have to mention numbers, but
yeah. Look, I mean, it's in line with our revenue projections when we built them in terms of what those would be. The values obviously is a different conversation. But match day still remains our main source of revenue generation. And yes, the fact that we've had 4 games that were in adverse weather, even though that's our main target for revenue, it obviously was affected. And then sponsorships, obviously sponsorships, as you could imagine, drive every sport, any entertainment business. So between sponsorships and matchday revenue, those are by far our main ones, which we're trying to capitalize on. You've got merchandise that's sitting, I would say, somewhat a distant third for now, but those are the top 2.
Understood. I'll do second last question. Can you share any memorable moments or achievements of the club that you've been a part of so far?
Look, I'd have to. The opening game, I think, was tremendous for the city. The opening game was very special. The first goal scored, the first professional soccer game, the team coming out with the green kit, and waving at the fans, people taking photos. I mean, that was unique. That was special. That was embracing. And that did put a warm, fuzzy feeling in everyone's heart. And I'm talking from the broadcasting crew right through to the security personnel and the EMS personnel. I mean, everyone was just so pleasantly overwhelmed that this actually happened. And for the city, once again, here's a professional sports business that is starting. I think they felt proud, and we felt proud of being able to start. The other one I would say was this past game that we had. We've come from very, very adverse weather on our match days, unfortunately. And the team that I work with, I mean, they've been going out to every single game, pouring with rain, and they've been setting up as if the weather was perfectly. They've been putting everything that they have out there, because we don't want to compromise on delivering what the best that we have if we have control over it. And they've been tremendous. Everyone has been tremendous. And I think the fact that we did have one Saturday of good weather, it was so motivating and validating for them. And it was probably the best show we could have wanted in terms of how everything flowed. There was a good crowd again. And the team unfortunately didn't get the 3 points, but I mean, they came in that second half, and they showed so much valor, so much determination, courage, showed accountability for trying to deliver to the fans and to the rest of the business. Just 100% effort. So I think those two, the very beginning and this very last one, gave everybody a very good feeling of what this could be, and the potential that it is, and it validated a lot of the decision making and the reasoning behind us being here.
Nice. I know we're running out of time here. I want to ask you one quick one before I want to ask you some fun questions too. But what's the exit? Is there an exit strategy for the team after 5 years, or?
No. Look, like I mentioned, to think beyond 5 years right now, I think I'd be creating an expectation that's not fair either on the people that I work with, or even on the city, because 5 years, unfortunately, it's not like it used to be years ago. But we put 5 years as initial milestone. But if it goes beyond that, it goes beyond that. In terms of a sellout, a buyout, a merger, we don't know what that looks like. We're just really starting, and we're trying to build something that's worthwhile to the community, to possible people that would want to be involved, and even just for us as people that are involved in it every day. We want to be proud of what we're doing and know that we're building something unique and special. So what will it look like in 5 years? We've got an idea. Is it going to get there? Is it going to get there sooner? Is it going to get there later? That only time will tell. But we're fully committed to achieving special things.
Got it. Some speed questions. So you got to answer them fast, Shane. Some fun ones though. Who's your favorite soccer player or football player?
I was brought up in an era where I was a Sporting fanatic in Portugal. So for me, Luis Figo is been the number one and number two and number three for me. He's ultimately for me the hero. Messi is probably the freak of everyone's generation, and I have to agree that he's probably the best that's ever walked on the planet. But Figo for me has always been special.
Favorite club?
Sporting in Portugal.
Favorite music?
I'm a big African house fan. I love African house, so that's definitely where my heart goes.
Favorite food?
I like Portuguese codfish. There's a particular way of Portuguese codfish that's made. That's my go-to place. There's nothing here where I am, but that's my go-to place.
Got it. Okay, I'll leave it at that because we're out. But Shane, thank you again for taking the time for joining us on the One Soccer Nation podcast today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.